Welcome grade 12s. Today we're looking at business operations with Learn Extra exam revision. Business operation consists of two main parts. Let's have a look at each of them. The first part of business operations, we're looking at you need to be able to describe and explain the human resource function in a business. So what this entails, this would be starting from grievance procedures. A lot of it would be to do from induction all the way to how to dismiss an employee, for example, employment contracts, everything around employees in the workplace, contracts. Part of this would also be, remember first term, you did all the work on the different labor legislation and laws come in again, looking at, for example, basic conditions of employment. So keep in mind, work from right through the year could be asked in this section relating to employees. The second part of business operations, it's looking at explain the importance of the quality of performance and describe how businesses implement strategies to monitor and evaluate quality. So this section looks at obviously quality management, how businesses go around this, TQM for example. Other important issues in this section would be quality circles, getting employees involved. So this section, even though it's the last section, business operations, there's a lot involved with the grade 12s, and make sure you don't skip this section when you're studying. So what I did was I chose a couple of questions. The first, remember, we always start with section A in our exams, which would be multiple choice, match the column, and what I did was take some multiple choice questions for you. So question 1, we'll be looking at multiple choice. So let's have a look. So 1.1, the actual performance of a manager is compared to his or her expected performance in order to increase his or her salary. So the main idea here is looking at comparing the expected performance, so how you want them to perform, and looking at how they actually perform. So let's have a look at the different options. So would this be part of placement, recruitment, could it be performance appraisal, or just part of the human resource department? So again, grade 12s, I've told you this a few times, go through the options, pick the one you like best, but also eliminate the other ones. And in this case, because you're comparing their actual performance and their expected performance, it couldn't be any other option except the performance appraisal, because you're comparing one part of them to what you expect from them, and if there's a salary increase involved, companies often do this to make sure that the company is benefiting by the employees working hard. The next question here, 1.2. So Rudy is the owner of a hardware store. He needs to appoint another assistant, so any additional staff. Now, what are the advantages for Rudy appointing someone internally? So two very important parts here, grade 12s. So what are the advantages? So what are the positive aspects of hiring somebody internally? In other words, hiring somebody already working in the business. Remember, you get internal and external recruitment. So advantages of internal recruitment. This is one of those questions where you have to read the different options and choose the options that suit the answer base. So let's have a look at the different options. So the first option here, so number 1, current employees are familiar with the business. So that's the first statement. And off the bat, you can hear this is an advantage of people already working in the business. The second point, current employees' careers are advanced. So again, it's employees working for you already and they are improving their careers. So this is internal and it's an advantage. So we already know it ticks the box. Let's read this third statement. The third statement, current employees are not suitably qualified. So yes, this does refer to internal recruitment, but it's giving us a negative. So that would not be part of the advantages of internal recruitment. And let's have a look at the fourth one here. Current employees do not bring new ideas to the business. Now again, yes, it does tick the box because it's an existing employee, but it's giving us a negative. So before we even get to look at what the different options are, we know off the bat that number 1 and number 2 are the best options available. So let's have a look at the answers. So A, B, C, or D, and you'll see A already, before we even have to go any further, grade 12s, we've already answered the question by just being proactive. So in this case, if we look at the question again, Rudy is the owner of a hardware store. He needs to appoint another assistant. What are the advantages of Rudy appointing someone internally? We saw that it was 1 and 2, and quite simply we could have answered and circled A. So the answer for question 1.2, A. Nice and easy. Let's have a look at the third one. So the process of measuring performance and comparing to predetermined standards is referred to as, so let's have a look. What are the different options? So it could be quality circles, quality control, total quality management, and quality grading. And in this case, what I would use, the method I would use is I would look at each of them and provide myself a definition of what they are and see which one is best suited. So in this case, because we are measuring performance and comparing it to predetermined standards, it would definitely be B, quality control. Why? Because we are comparing a product to preconceived or predetermined standards. So if we're creating shoes, this shoe needs to be exactly the same as the 1,000 other shoes we created to keep the quality control in measure. The fourth question over here, let's have a look. A way recommended to confirm a candidate's information before an interview is conducted. So this will be part of the human resource function where we advertise a post internally, externally. We have received CVs, and within the CV, we need to check whether people are actually, whether they can back up what they've said, their qualifications, previous work experience. So let's have a look. So recommendations to confirm a candidate's information before an interview. So this could be a reference check, psychometric testing, it could be another option, employment contracts, or part of induction. So again, let's break the sentence down. It's a way recommended to confirm a candidate's information. How are you going to confirm a candidate's information? It will be a reference check. Remember, at the end of the CV, you write your references. So for 1.4, it will most definitely be a reference check. The last multiple choice question here, let's have a look. It's the process whereby new employees' skills are matched to the position in which they will be appointed. So these are the four main headings, you'll recognize them. So is it part of induction? Is it part of recruitment, placement, or selection? So let's read the sentence again. So it's a process where new employees are matched to their position in which they will be appointed. So this will quite simply be placement, grade 12s. Why? Because you're placing them in the position you advertised for, they applied for, and you're placing them in the job. Easy as that. Remember, in this section, there's still multiple, so we've done multiple choice, but there's also match the column as well as the words in brackets. So section A, let's move on to the second section, section B. Remember, these are more medium, short, long questions with lots of case studies. So let's have a look at the first question. Yeah. So question 2, and remember, we're looking at the last section, business operations. So explain, keyword here, why an employment contract is important, and state any 4 clauses that must appear in an employment contract. Remember, employment contracts very, very important. It gives the employer and the employee a sense of, comfort, but you know what's expected, and your company also has certain expectations that you need to live up to. So what are at least 4 clauses that appear in an employment contract? So, before we go any further, grade 12s, there's 2 parts to this question. Again, I did exactly what I tell you not to do. Read your question and see how it's layered. So this is layered in 2 parts. So the first part here, as I started, explain why the employment contract is important, and then state 4 clauses that must appear. So you start with the first part here, and you'll see it's a 10-mark question. So the first part here, we're going to explain. So why do we have employment contracts? It's to protect both the employee and the employer, as it is legal and binding between the 2 parties. So if both parties have signed, both parties have agreed, they have to follow whatever's in the contract. So you could use that as an example of explaining what a contract is. Or you could say the contract must specify the legal considerations. So it has to have everything in there. including remuneration, for example, any benefits, working hours, etc., and what's expected from the employer as well as the employee. So that was your explanation, and you'll see here that is worth 2 marks. So that's 2 out of the 10. So we know that we still need to get to the 4 possible stipulations. So what could they be? Any of the following grade 12s. When you're studying, obviously some of them will stand out more than others. So what could be part of it? So first off, the personal details of the employee. Example, their age, name, address, identity, or their ID document number, etc. So that is the first thing that you could include in your employment contract. The second one, details of the business. So the business's name, address, and where it's located. So it's the employer's information as well as the employee's information. So that's the second one. A third one you could include would be the job title. So what are you actually doing? Then a fourth one, normal place of work. And let's do one more. Any agreement between the business and trade unions. So anything specified or specific between trade unions and the company, for example, that you need to be aware of. And there's a whole list of them, grade 12s, that you can go through. It's the date that you start working, probation period, what is meant by probation period, so how long, so often companies give a 2 or 3 months probation period where you see whether you fit into the company and the company sees whether you fit into it before you actually sign a final employment contract. Now you'll see, remember I told you this is a 2-part question, so it's layered. So your first part, you had your two marks for explaining it. Then you've written your 4 clauses that need to be included in the statement, so that's going to be your 4 times 2. And you will have 10 marks for this question. Do you see grade 12s? Take it easy, read properly, and just write down in a systematic way. And another tip I want to give you, write in point form if you can, because it makes it clearer, or it makes it clear to see what you're saying and how you're trying to say it. And it's a nice way for you to keep track. Did I actually write 1, 2, 3, 4 points, so that you also keep track in what you're doing. Now I want to do one more question, and this question looks at 2.2, describe any 2 ways of ending an employment contract. So now we looked at what is an employment contract, what needs to be in there, but now obviously there's going to become a time where people want to come or go or leave for whichever reason, and it's important for businesses to know how do you end a contract, for example. So the question, describe any 2 ways of ending an employment contract. So how could this happen? So the first way could be through dismissal. Dismissal is another way of saying that somebody was fired. Now remember, you can't just fire somebody. It has to go through certain procedures, verbal warnings, written warnings, disciplinaries. But that could be one way that a person could end their contract because they were dismissed for whichever reason. Redundancy would be a second one. When when a company is downsizing, for example, and they need less employees, so those people will become redundant. And this would often, when you hear people say they got a package because the company got smaller, etc. So that's redundancy. Retirement. So this would be if you come to an age, often 65, where people, it's the end of their work career or their work lifespan as such, and they want to go and enjoy some time off, really, from work. And lastly, resignation. This is when you, as an employee, elect to leave your job. And what do I mean with elect? So you choose. So I found a better position somewhere else. I need to resign at my current job and then apply, or not apply, but go to my next job. Very important with all, remember they only asked for 2 of them, guys. Now grade 12s, they say describe. And you heard now, even though I listed them, you would have to describe these in detail. And it's important for you to know the difference between each of them and the legal requirements of each of them. So a quick break and we'll go into the next question. Welcome back, grade 12s. We're going to the next question now, and this question involves some case studies. Remember, you need to read your case studies, apply to the questions, but before I get ahead of myself, let's just have a look at it and go through the questions. So the first question, would be, or this next question we're looking at is question 3. It's read the following case study and answer the questions that follow. So grab your highlighter, get ready. Remember, it's easier to follow when you highlight. So James Small owns a small retail shop in East London. He wants to employ an office assistant who will contact suppliers, keep documents and files in order, and liaise with the public. Now, so that is what he's looking for. Second part here, applicants must have experience with Microsoft Office Suite and must be able to communicate clearly. The minimum qualification is a grade 12 certificate, so a matric. So that's the case study. Let's have a look at the actual question. So assist Mr. Small to complete a job analysis for the position under the following subheadings. So the first subheading here would be duties, which is A, and B, personal qualities. So this advert was very clear when we read through it, what the person is looking for and what qualifications. And this should already, your ear should start to tingle. It's job specification and job description. Okay, what's nice, however, grade 12s, they've given you subheadings to work with. So let's have a look at the first one, the duties. So with the duties, do you see how off the top, see, it's the job analysis. So under A, what are the duties? And those there are a number of them, grade 12s, that you could have used. What they've got here would be contact suppliers, to keep documents and to file orders, as well as to liaise with the public and answer queries. So let's have a look at the mark allocation. The mark allocation was only for 2. So it's not necessary for you to write down every single duty, but it's good for you to have an idea, perhaps write down even 2, just in case. So duties, what you are expected, or what is expected from the person that is hired. Okay, and expected, and this is in the sense of the actual job function, what they're doing in their job. Then the personal qualities, again, this to a large extent is about expectation, but this is what is expected for them before they even do the job. So what does he want from them? So personal qualities, let's have a look at B. So what do candidates need? They need to have good interpersonal skills. In other words, grade 12s, interpersonal, they need to have good communication skills between people. So if you're going to have somebody work in your shop, you obviously want somebody with good people skills. You don't want to scare your customers away. What also that they want with personal qualities, ability to communicate clearly, that would be part of the first one as well, I think, and good organizational skills. So you want this assistant to be able to not only work well with the public, but they need to have good filing abilities, and make sure that obviously with the bit of work they're doing, or that you've given them as the boss, they're doing correctly. So this question was also only for 2 marks, so it's not necessary to write all 3 of them, but make sure that you separate personal qualities and duties. Don't confuse the 2. Let's go to the next question. Now, question 4 is another case study. I love doing case studies because it forces you to really read and try and engage with what you're doing. So grab your highlighters, let's go. This is Trends Wholesalers. Now, they buy their milk directly from Easy Dairy Farm. Now, a day after delivery, Trends Wholesalers discovered that the milk had become sour. Trends Wholesalers immediately informed Easy Dairy Farmer about the situation, but nothing was done. Easy Dairy Farm lost many customers as a result of this challenge. So from this case study, we can see that if the supplier lets down the person or the buyer, if the supplier lets down the buyer, it will affect the buyer in a very big way. Customers will lose satisfaction, obviously, in what you're producing, and you will lose money. So the relationship between the buyer and the supplier becomes very important in the big picture of a company becoming or sustaining its profitability. What happened in this case study, they complained that the milk was sour, but nothing was done, and the company lost customers due to dissatisfaction. Good, so you've got an idea. Let's have a look at the questions around this. 4.1. Advise Easy Dairy Farm on how to implement a continuous improvement cycle to improve the quality of their product. So this question is asking you to advise the farm on how to implement, and the keyword here, continuous improvement cycle to improve the quality of their product. So with this question, let's have a look at it and we'll break it down. There are 4 steps in looking at, and I'm going to change the color so you can see it nicely, a continuous improvement cycle. So first thing that they need to do or implement would be to look at the plan. And an easy way before even going to planning, so this is PDCA. So the continuous improvement cycle, PD or PDCA. So first off, plan. So trains wholesalers should identify the problem and develop a plan for improvement, or answer the question as what to do and how to do it. So trains wholesalers need to plan what should they do if they receive milk that is sour on delivery. And then let's go one further. They need to plan how are they going to get those customers back that they've lost because of the problem with the sour milk. So planning, very important. Remember, so it's P, then we get to D. This is the actual do. So trains wholesalers should do as planned. What do they mean with do as planned? So remember, you've got your planning here. So they should do as planned and implement the plan on a test basis on a small scale. So what could they do? For example, in this case, so it was sour milk. Before they take delivery, they should sample some of the milk, for example, and see if it's fresh, see if it's sour. And if if the plan is that they are going to taste the milk beforehand, they have to do it every time and start off small. So implement this plan of change where it will be, I'm going to taste the product and then do it at least once to see if this works. Now we've got P, D, let's go to C. So we're going to check or analyze what we've planned and done. So what goes with this? Trains wholesalers should assess the plan and establish if it is working and if things are going according to the plan. So remember, we're looking at how to improve things. So let's start right from so we plan to check. So we plan for checking our products. Then remember the next one, we actually implement the plan. And then with C, checking, we check that people are checking the milk, implementing the planning, etc. And then the last one, act as needed. Now, trains wholesalers should institutionalize the improvement and devise strategies on how to continuously improve. So if the small test was initially, we need to taste the batch when it comes into us to make sure it's not sour. If this plan worked, because remember it's plan, do, check, act. If this plan has worked, you can implement it on a larger scale, or you can even try and implement it on something else completely. So going back to the question, you'll see this was out of 8 marks, and you'll see this was marked along the lines of 1 for telling me planning and 1 for explaining it. So it will be obviously the same going all the way through. So that is how you get your 8 marks. The next question, grade 12s, that follows on with this, still looking at trends, would be question 4.2. So with question 4.2, we've now looked at the plan, etc. This question looks at provide easy dairy with 4 key principles related to TQM, so total quality management. And this is out of 8 marks. So this is also it's only got 1 layer. It's asking us simply to provide 4 key principles. Let's have a look. So out of these 4 key principles, the first one would be, and it's not just 4 key principles, remember grade 12s, it's 4 key principles related to total quality management. So first off, management. So top management should act as the main driver for TQM and create an environment that ensures its success. So it's management has to take on a lot of responsibility and accountability to make sure that the TQM is not only implemented, but that it's actually functioning properly. Next would be training. So employees should receive regular training on the methods and concepts of quality. So first off, management needs to make sure that this is implemented, but employees need to be trained. And it's not a once-off training, it's continuous training. As technology improves, for example, different techniques will change, everything changes. You need to train your employees often to make sure that they're part of the proper TQM. Next part of this, and remember we only need to do 4, it's customer focus. So improvements in quality should improve customer service. So there's no point in improving something if it doesn't improve the quality for the customer, or the perceived quality even for customers. So there needs to be focus on what you're doing. And let's do one more, decision making. So quality decisions should be made based on measurements. So what they're trying to say, yeah, grade 12s, if you measure something, it should be measurable. So an example of that would be if your total quality management, if your big picture is that you want to improve your profit, for example, then what you need to do is, okay, I want you to have an increase of 20%. That is measurable. You can go to the bank account and you can see, have I gone up 10, 20% or not? So then let's go one further, sticking to the total quality management. If you wanted to have your defects, for example, you are a producer of computer screens and you had 10 defects a day. Remember, those defects cost you money. If part of your total quality management was to reduce your amount of products lost, you can measure that at the end of the day. Has the quality of training my employees, for example, lessened the amount of wastage we have? So it's measurable, it's tangible, you can see if it's happening. Let's do one last one. It's methodology and tools. So use the appropriate tools to ensure that non-conformance are identified, measured, and consistently corrected. So it's not only good enough to implement change or to not just implement change, but to, for example, train your employees. You need to measure it, like we discussed, but you also need to be able to make sure that it is consistent. So that this is happening. If you produce it once, it can be reproduced again. So let's have a quick break, grade 12s, and then we'll carry on with another question. Welcome back, grade 12s. Carrying on with the case studies, and remember, case study is always your friend if you read them properly. So grab your highlighters, let's have a look at the next question with another case study. This one, question 5, we're looking at Reshma's Events Management Agency. So Reshma's Events Management Agency has 2 vacancies, one for a marketing manager and another for a purchasing manager. So 2 positions. The enterprise has advertised these vacancies in newspapers and on the internet. So we know off the bat what's happening here. There are 2 positions available, and we also know where they've been advertising. So keeping that in mind, let's have a look at the first question. So the first question, 5.1, what type of recruitment did Reshma's Event Management Agency use? Justify your answer for 4 marks. So let's have a look here. So what you need to do is establish, is this internal or external? What you know off the bat, grade 12s, that in the case study, they actually tell you. So they have advertised in newspapers and on the internet. Those are both obviously outside the business. So we know this type of advertising was external recruitment. That was worth 2 marks. Easy enough. Then they ask you, the second part of this question is, justify your answer. So in other words, why do you say it is external? And quite simply put, because the vacancies were advertised in newspapers and on the internet. So it took place outside of the business. Easy 4 marks for you to have. And just to follow on quickly, remember internal and external. I'm aware of the fact that there are rules regarding internal and external recruitment, but this question specifically asked you what type of recruitment is being used. So let's look at the next question, question 5.2. It asks us, state 4 advantages of this type of recruitment. Now this is obviously a question following on from 5.1. Thinking back quickly, we've just done it. What is this type of recruitment? This type of recruitment is external recruitment. So we now know we need to provide 4 advantages of external recruitment. Let's have a look at those. Now with external recruitment, first one, new candidates bring new talent, ideas, insight, and experience into the business. So the first advantage is literally fresh blood brings in fresh ideas. So if you've been working in a company for a long time, often what happens, people start doing things the same way, and when you bring in a new person, they have all these great new ideas, and this will definitely be an advantage. The second advantage of this type of recruitment, it supports the implementation of affirmative action and BEE plans. So it's important, again, remember we're looking at labor legislation, labor law, and your business needs to be in line with certain aspects of the law, and this will help you by taking out outside employees, for example, to fill in vacancies that need to be filled. The third advantage, there are more candidates to choose from. So literally, if you have a company, you've got 10 employees, if you're recruiting from within the company, you've only got a choice of 10. If you use external recruitment, it's unlimited. Imagine placing an advert in a big newspaper, thousands and thousands of people read it. So you literally have a very large pool to choose from, where if you just stay internally, you've got a small pool of people to choose from. The fourth advantage, chances are better of finding suitable candidates with the right skills, qualifications, and competencies. Often if you hire, the opposite of this would be if you hire somebody who already works for you in a company, you would have to provide them with skills training, etc. If you hire somebody outside the company, it gives you a nice opportunity to literally handpick somebody for that position instead of spending money on training. Let's do one more. It prevents unhappiness between existing employees who have applied for the post. So often what will happen, people will be unhappy, and by unhappy, for example, two people in a company apply for a position, the one person gets picked over the other person to get the promotion. Obviously the person who didn't get the promotion will be very, very unhappy and there'll be a bad atmosphere, bad blood between the two. And remember, if an employee is unhappy, they're probably not working to their best, and this will influence your company in the long run. So by recruiting externally, nobody inside the company can feel hard done because nobody inside the company literally got it. Let's go to the next question here. And obviously, grade 12s, you can read on further for that part, the next part there. Question 5.3, we're looking at, explain to Reshma the difference between a job description and job specification. So this is worth 4 marks. So in other words, what's happening here? 2 marks for job description, 2 marks for job specification. Literally, all you're going to do is write down the definition. So let's have a look at the definitions of both of them. So a job description, this is a written description of the job requirements, including, and let's have this, the duties, responsibilities, working conditions, etc. So job description is literally looking at what are you doing inside the company. So what will your actual job be? Are you going to spend time working on a computer, filing, etc.? So this is your actual, what you will be doing. On the other side would be job specification. Now job specification is also written, and it's a description of the specific qualifications and characteristics needed to do the job, including your physical requirements, education, etc. So job specification would be, for example, you need a BSc, 4 years prior job experience, and you need to be able to be physically fit because you're working, let's say, on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. These are just specifications that help, that help businesses sort of filter through the different CVs to know who they need. So obviously, if it's a person without a BSc and they require a BSc, they'll immediately be eliminated from the choices, for example. So very important, know the difference between job description and job specification. Good stuff, grade 12s. Let's go to question 5.4. So question 5.4 is quite, it's detailed, it's out of 10, so you need to make sure that you have it in order, that you understand how it works. So discuss the steps required in the recruitment process. Now, whenever you hear the word steps, grade 12s, your ears should sort of like tingle. What does it mean? If it's steps, there should be a certain type of order that goes with it. So there needs to be in a beginning. So where do you begin in the recruitment process? And then where do you end in the recruitment process? So again, so in order, let's have a look. What are the steps in the recruitment process? And then you'll see here, I've written, must be in order. So first off, you need to, so the first one, we'll just make that number 1, determine the exact need of the business or the specific department. So if you need So if you need a new employee, you need to know exactly what are the exact needs and in which department. The second step, so together with a line manager, do a job analysis and prepare a job description and job specification. We just did a question on that, so you know what you're looking for. So that's step 2, job description and job specification. Third step, identify and decide on a recruitment source. So are you going to go internal, external, or both sources being used? So remember, this is where you're advertising for this post. Next in line, you need to write an advert and include all the relevant information, such as the name and the recruiting officer, etc. So, you know, when you read the newspaper and you get those little adverts telling you what's happening. So part of writing the job description, job specification, is literally writing an ad and writing it also in such a way that it's concise, it's clear, people know what you are looking for. So let's go to the next step, step 5. You're going to take that advert you've written and you're going to place the advert in an appropriate newspaper or staff magazine or the internet, or send the information to a recruitment agency. Now this last step is literally taking everything else we've done and bringing it to a point. And you can see here why this needs to be in order grade 12s. So it literally starts from determining what needs to be done to placing the actual advert. And that would give you your 5 times 2 mark. So grade 12s, getting to section C, my favorite part, essays. Now remember, again, I'll tell you this over and over and over. 4 essays, choose 2, but choose the 2 wisely. And what I mean with wisely, make sure that you can actually answer the questions, and as you read through them, that you can break it down and see which ones are the easiest for you. So the one I've got for this section, and in this case question 6, was again related to business operations. So let's have a look. Remember, the first section is always just the part that's going to give you a bit of background information. So Yellow Supermarkets has certain businesses and management functions which are performed by the managers of the various departments within the organization. At the annual general meeting, Mr. Zonke, as general manager, remarked that the quality of performance within these business functions can contribute to the success of the organization. So remember, this part, basically just a background story to help give you perspective. Let's have a look at the actual question. Analyze and discuss how the quality of performance within the following business functions can contribute to a successful business. So again, it's a layered question. So let's have a look at what they're asking here. So they're asking you to analyze and discuss how the quality of performance within the business functions, so that's sort of the third idea, can contribute to the success of a business. And in this case, they were really nice because they remember there are 8 business functions. They've given you 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4 of the business functions. So you have to specifically analyze and discuss and look at how this can contribute to the success of the business within that framework. So if you do your planning, grade 12s, you know there's 3 things that need to happen here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 headings. So again, I would go around looking at 4 points per heading, taking into account that I need to answer those 3 points as I go along. So let's have a look at what your introduction will look like. So your introduction, remember, your introduction will be 2 points for 1 mark each, and you can use a definition, a statement, but something of value that contributes to the actual essay. So within your introduction, and remember this is for 2 marks, businesses have to perform the 8 business functions which are interrelated in order to be successful. So you're acknowledging that there are 8 business functions and they all work together for the business to work. Then quality cannot be achieved solely by one person in the business working towards a particular goal. And we mentioned that earlier with TQM, for example. Management has to work with employees and make sure that everything they're doing is working towards the quality of the product or the service. So it's not just one person's job to make sure the quality is good. So there's your introduction. Remember, you can use anything else related to quality management, for example, in this case, or even the business functions. Let's go to the body. if you remember correctly, grade 12s, the first one they mentioned there was the marketing function, and there was the 3 parts to it. So let's have a look. So marketing is making the public aware of what is available through advertising, etc. So you are now telling me, or telling the person reading your essay, what is marketing. So you are discussing it. Also, using pricing techniques to ensure competitive advantage, more discussing, and bringing goods within easy reach of consumers through storage, distribution, and advertising. Remember, these 3 go hand in hand and often forgotten: storage, distribution, and advertising. Now, one of the sub-questions, remember, we looked at analyzing, evaluating, etc. So, effective quality performance, how would this happen? So, through new products must also be advertised to attract new customers. Remember, this could even go further back. You can link this to strategies you did right in the beginning of the year, when introducing new products to new markets, for example, and all the strategies that go with that. Then, part of the marketing would be looking at to strive to acquire a greater market share. The next point, marketing communication policy must be well implemented so that customers can be aware of the products or services. And lastly, pricing techniques should be well used to ensure competitive advantage. So you'll see here, grade 12s, 3 times 2, which will give you 6. And this was looking at the marketing. Let's go to the next part here, looking at general management. Remember, general management also was part of what we did earlier. So breaking this down, let's have a look at general management in a bit more detail. So general management must develop, implement, and monitor strategic plans. So remember, you have different levels of management, and part of what general management does is to ensure that there is strategic implementation. Next, communicate shared vision, mission, and values effectively. So management, it's part of their role to be effective, etc., and to improve quality and be positive and add or create an advantage through sharing the vision, mission, and values. Next, it consists of the following activities: planning, organizing, leading, and control. Some of you will remember this as from previous or not, but a nice acronym would be POLC. Planning, organizing, leading, and control, part of general management. Now let's look at the effective quality performance of the general management. So in this case, a strategic plan must be in place, so you have to plan ahead. Comparison of figures on profitability of the organization must be made. And these go hand in hand. Remember, if you want to measure something, it has to have a measurable outcome. And looking at profitability, it's easy to measure. Why? Because you can look at last year's statements compared to this year's statements. And remember, we're focusing on effective quality performance. So how do we see if this is improving? Next, give direction and establish priorities for the business. And again, this is a managerial task. And the enterprise must strive for a positive image in the minds of consumers. Remember, if you have a good or perceived good image of a business, you're more likely to spend your money there. And if you're more likely to spend your money there, obviously their profit margins are going to increase. And part of this, they've included ideas on surveys to make sure that how do people perceive the company, and also issues around being proactive and seeking to improve their competitive advantage over their competitors. So look at what I'm doing, look at what my competitors are doing, and sort of what can I do to sort of one-up them to get more customers. Remember your target market and increasing your market share. Public relations was the third one we were looking at. So public relations, what's meant with this? So it promotes a positive image by liaising with the relevant stakeholders. Now, who could these relevant stakeholders be, grade 12s? These could be, obviously, the first thing you're going to think of would be customers, but it could be shareholders, employees, literally anybody involved in looking at the business. Okay, so keep that in mind. Stakeholders are more than just customers. Next, part of public relations would be to communicate with outsiders to obtain recognition as an organization. So this would be getting people to see you. Okay, and why do you want that? So that they can buy from you. The next part, remember, we look at effective quality of performance. How can this be done? So if there's negative publicity, counter the negative publicity. So, people often joke and say no publicity is bad publicity. There is bad publicity, and it can affect businesses negatively. So as a company, be proactive, try and fix what's been done to regain your customers. So counter the negative publicity however you can. Also, release regular positive press statements. You can all think of companies off the top of your head that make it very clear, for example, that they're part of corporate social investment, that they're environmentally friendly, and they let us know why, because it creates a perception that we think that they are good companies. Next part here, businesses must attain a respectable position in society that will go hand in hand with the positive press. And I want to go to the last one, the human resource function or human resources. And what we have here, to find a suitable person for the right job or the right post. Remember, we've looked at human resources earlier, so you've got a good idea of what's happening there. It's also to appoint a person for the position where his or her capabilities can be used to the advantage of the business. So it's about, remember, we created an advert, we sent out, well, we received CVs, we did interviews, and then we actually, part of this would be hiring the person and placing the person. And it's having the right person for the right job. And literally, if you place people correctly, they'll work well for you. And remember, happy employees are hardworking employees. Then let's look at the effective quality of performance and how this is affected. So continuous training and development of staff, very important. Make sure that your staff are up to date, not only with technology, but also what's happening in the world, business world. Even emotional intelligence is very important at the moment as well. So keeping them abreast of what is happening. Then appropriate training and development programs can lead to highly stable staff. Stable staff, so not a lot of absenteeism, not a lot of fighting, working well in teams. And lastly, this can lead to low rate of staff turnover. Remember, staff turnover is a way of saying that people come and go and leave a company often, and this will have an impact on training costs, etc. So we've looked at the four, we've described them, we've looked at effective quality management. Now it's your conclusion. And with your conclusion, again, it's worth 2 marks. And something to keep in mind, remember you've got your lasso, so remember this is your layout, analysis, synthesis, and originality, which will give you the other 8 marks. Businesses must always focus on satisfying customer needs. Remember, needs and wants are basic of business studies. So if you focus on the needs, you know you will get your profit. Grade 12s, today we've looked at business operations. We've looked at various aspects. Remember your section A, your section B, section C. Make good choices, read carefully, and time yourself properly. Study well.